and welcome to the inaugural episode of Nerding the Puck, a show where I break down hockey stuff with numbers and then rant like a lunatic. If you're anything like the average hockey fan, you probably enjoy making fun of the Toronto Maple Leafs, because, well... But there's one thing that Maple Leafs fans bring up in their defense. One thing that keeps them afloat in the cold sea of mockery that surrounds them. The Toronto Maple Leafs have won 13 Stanley Cups. Now, a nicer, more mature person would simply stop trying to make these people feel worse about their favorite hockey team. But here at Nerding the Puck, we know the truth. The truth that not all Stanley Cups are created equally. Literally, there's like 3 different ones right there. But my point is that the Maple Leafs have 2 key advantages in the Stanley Cup department. 1, they've been around way longer than most teams, giving them more opportunities to win. In addition to the extra opportunity that comes from being an older team, winning a Stanley Cup today is far more difficult than it used to be. For example, take this year's Stanley Cup champion Colorado Avalanche. They had to play 82 games, finish top 3 in their 8-team division, and win 4 consecutive best-of-7 series to be crowned NHL champs. For contrast, look at the Toronto Maple Leafs' first Stanley Cup, won in 1918, before they were even called the Maple Leafs. They played a 22-game regular season in a 4-team league, which eventually became a 3-team league because halfway through the Montreal Wanderers arena burned down and they were forced to disband. They won a 2-game playoff series and then a best-of-5 playoff series against a team from a different league to win the Stanley Cup. Now, in the name of truth and justice, I have created a new stat to rank all 32 NHL teams on how historically successful they've been. Basically, I took every Stanley Cup ever won and turned it into a fraction, where the numerator was the number of teams in the league when the cup was won, and the denominator was the current number of teams, 32. Making a cup won today in today's 32-team league worth 1 and all other cups some fraction of 1. Then, each team's total value worth of cups is divided by how many years they've existed and sorted from greatest to least. This creates what I call the Table of Historical Success, which features 6 tiers from champs to chumps. At the bottom of the recently adjusted pile are the teams unfortunate enough to have never won a Stanley Cup. Vegas and Seattle get a free pass because they just joined the league, but Buffalo and Vancouver have been here for like 50 years, so they should probably figure it out. Though these teams are in the second to last tier, all of them have histories to be proud of. The Flyers won back-to-back cups before they were 10 years old. The Rangers have seen periodic success throughout their 96-year history. Carolina, Washington, Calgary, and Dallas's 1 cup in 50-odd years is nothing to scoff at in a league with 12 cupless teams. And rounding out this tier is everyone's favorite Toronto Maple Leafs. Despite their 13 Stanley Cups, they haven't won one since before disco was popular. The next tier is a bit of a mixed bag. Boston has seen a decent amount of success both recently and historically. Chicago has won 3 cups in the last 15 years, but before that they had 3 in 81. LA and Anaheim are both relatively young teams with at least 1 cup in the 21st century. The third tier is led by 2 teams who dominated the late 90s and early 2000s, the New Jersey Devils and the Colorado Avalanche. The Islanders made it up here thanks to their 4 straight cups in the early 80s, and Detroit is another old team with a storied history. They wound up in this tier because more of their success has occurred after the invention of color television. Seeing as the first tier only has 1 team in it, these teams really represent the gold standard in terms of team history. Edmonton made it here due to being only 43 years old and going on a run of dominance in the 80s. Pittsburgh is a bit older but has had 2 sets of back-to-back cups, including their most recent in 2016 and 2017. Montreal won tons of cups when the league only had 6 teams in it, but with the exception of the last 30 years, they've been successful throughout almost their entire history. Even when early cups have been weighted less, having 24 Stanley Cups is a hard number to argue with. And finally, at the top of the pile, we have the Tampa Bay Lightning. They won their first cup in 2004, just 12 years after their creation. They really get the benefit of this stat because in addition to being only 30 years old, they've won 2 cups very recently in a 31-team league. These factors add up to give Tampa a historical success score that's in a league of its own. It's important to note that while this stat allows us to put younger teams on a more even playing field with the older franchises, these rankings should be taken with a grain of salt. There are plenty of different ways to define success in the NHL, and many franchises have folded due to financial issues throughout the league's history, so still being around is an accomplishment in itself. That being said, the next time you hear a Maple Leaf fan going off about how many cups they have, you just remember that they've never won one with more than 8 teams in the league. Thanks for watching Nerding the Puck. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and I'll see you next time.